Good morning. We'll call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Sonier.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 4 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
It was moved by Alderman Browning and seconded by Alderman Aldridge. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Sonier. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 4 aye votes.
All right, with that, we've successfully approved the minutes. We're going to move the agenda around just a little bit. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. Anybody who did want to speak, we want to make sure you're signed up on the sign-in sheet. We're going to move down to the committee discussions and mayoral's appointments to the St. Louis Housing Authority Commission, just to get them processed and out of our way to be able to get to you all and not be in a rushed time limit. So, Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, can you have all of them unmute and raise their right hands? We do have 3 present, and we have written testimony from Ms. Rachel DeZouza. Hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I did. DeZouza. And so we also have testimony in the bio of Ms. Fowler as well. So we want to make sure that we move forward with them today. I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez and Ochoa. Am I pronouncing it right? I don't know. Okay, Ochoa, you are present. Thank you. That's what we were trying to see. Okay. All right. Everyone raise your right hand. I'm sorry, Sal. Did you get tired of raising your right hand? Raise your right hand. Do you all swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? All right. Okay, well, we'll start with you, Mr. Ozawa. You can come on up to the podium and give us a little bit of background and why thank you first, but why you are willing to volunteer and serve on the St. Louis Housing Authority Commission.
Does that work now? All right. Hello, fellow commissioners. Name is Constantino Ochoa, resident of Old North St. Louis. Lived there since 2003. Been on the commission from 2018 currently. Past positions I've had were vice president as well as treasurer. Right now I'm just a commissioner on the board. Love doing what I've been doing there for years. Love advocating for the folks, learning a lot from my fellow commissioners who are tenant commissioners, and just enjoy doing what I do with the commission.
Thank you so much for your continued service. We'll go ahead and go down in order of seniority. Alderman Browning, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for being here. Are you a reappointment or a new appointment?
Reappointment.
Okay. No, how long have you been serving?
Since 2018.
2018. I would just say thank you for your service. This is I think a really important board that helps the city when it comes to housing. So I just appreciate your commitment to the city of St. Louis and want to stay on this board. So thank you.
No doubt.
Vice Chair Sanye?
Yeah, I think your mic been. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to echo the sentiments and thank you for your interest in serving as well. I am curious, what has been your favorite part of serving so far, since it has been some years?
Many. The recurrent theme for me is just always being humble to be asked to be part of it again, as well as learning new situations that always pop up month by month with the commission, as well as the commissioners who are residents, just learning through them and their experiences. So for me, it's just always a great way to keep learning. I always love learning as I grow. I don't think we just know everything all the time. So I think it's always a great way of learning and just kind of growing from there as commissioner.
And what's been the most challenging part of serving so far?
A lot of work to do. A
Yeah.
lot of work to do.
Well, thank you for doing it.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time being here this morning, being available to answer any questions. Again, we all had access to your bios and heard of the work that you had been doing and will now continue to do. So again, we thank you for your continued service and congratulations.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Cone just came on, so let's see if he has any questions. Alderman Cone?
Sorry, I've actually been here since we passed the minutes, Madam Chair, just for the record. So I just also want to reiterate my thanks for your service, continued service, and reappointment nomination to the board here. I've been a partner with the Housing Authority for many years, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done over there. So I appreciate people being willing to take that on and work for the betterment of the residents and the housing that we provide for them. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again. All right. Call the next one, Madam Clerk.
Next speaker is Regina Fowler.
Good morning, Ms. Fowler.
Good morning. How are you all?
How are you? Thank you so much for being here this morning, and thank you for your willingness to serve, especially this way, as we have already heard the need is great. I'll go ahead and start with questions. Alderman Cone?
I don't have any questions. I'll just kind of reiterate. I know we've got a couple of folks on the agenda for today, and I'm just going to do a blanket, thank you for your commitment to our city and the Housing Authority. There are a lot of challenges with the housing and rebuilding and projects that are happening and making sure that we've got maintenance and safety and all of that. And it's just, I know that it is not a position that is taken lightly by those that serve on this commission, and that there is a significant amount of work that goes into this, and relying upon the staff and tenants and others to do their part as well. But want to just recognize all of you for your dedication to our city and to this particular board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Browning?
No questions. Thank you so much.
Alderman Aldridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Ms. For being here today. Same question. Are you a reappointment to this board?
I am. I was originally appointed in 2018 also, and it is a reappointment.
Thank you so much. Echo the sentiments of my colleague from the 3rd Ward, and thank you for your willingness to continue to serve.
Vice Chair Sanye?
Hi, Ms. Fowler. Nice
Hey.
to see you. I'm going to ask you
Thanks.
the same questions that I asked previously. What has been the most rewarding part of serving, and what has been the most challenging part?
The most rewarding certainly is the feeling that you're doing something for the city that I live in and I love. So providing that service is important to me. The most challenging is meeting the needs of those who need the most help. Given the limited budget that exists and the challenges that exist in public housing, you can't meet all the needs even though you want to. So it's challenging, but I would say certainly my time on the board, we've really worked hard to do as much as we can. So
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you as well again, Ms. Fowler. Did you have any closing remarks or anything?
I am just going to have to leave. I'm catching
Okay.
a flight out of here.
Absolutely.
So thank you for
Listen,
taking me
that's
early.
thank you so much. I'm glad you shared that. That's why I want to make sure I get it here. And your volunteerism and importance of your time and respect for your time. Thank you so much for taking the time and have a safe flight. Traveling grace.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Next.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes, good morning, members of the distinguished HUD's committee. Happy to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Good to see you. We'll start with questions, and I'm not sure if Alderman Cone was saying he didn't need to be asked for any more questions or.
I am familiar with Mr. Martinez. I am familiar with his service to the Housing Authority, former chair of the Housing Authority as well. He's done a lot of work around this particular issue and within our community. And again, appreciate everything you do, Mr. Martinez, for our city very much.
Thank you, Alderman Cone. I appreciate those kind words.
All right. Alderman Browning.
No questions. Also familiar with Mr. Martinez and just thank him for his service.
Thank you, Alderman Browning.
All right. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Same question. Are you a reappointment? I know the answer, but are you a reappointment or a new member to this board?
Yes, Alderman Aldridge. This will be a reappointment for me.
And how long have you served?
I was originally appointed to the board of St. Louis Housing Authority in 1998 by former Mayor Clarence Harmon. So I've had over a 2-decade relationship with the St. Louis Housing Authority.
Absolutely. And I'm also familiar with your work. I appreciate your commitment to the city and to the Housing Authority Board and all the great work that you have done on that board and throughout the city of St. Louis. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge.
Mm-hmm. Vice Chair Sanye.
Hi, Mr. Martinez. Always nice
Hi,
to
Alderman.
see you. Same questions that I had before. Just what's the most rewarding part of serving and what's the most challenging?
Yeah, I would say the most rewarding is to the people, have an opportunity to do what we can to improve their lives. Some of you may know that I live in between the Clinton Peabody Public Housing Development and the LaSalle Park Housing Development. I don't live there because I have to. I live there because I want to. The residents in those two developments are my neighbors, and I love them dearly. Like I love all of our residents that both live in public housing and that participate in the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. So it's the people, getting to know them, getting to work with them, helping them to improve their lives. I would say the most challenging thing is the lack of available resources. Certainly, we appreciate the ongoing support of the city of St. Louis, the state, the federal government, but this is a very difficult job. We have a lot of inventory that is very old that needs to be repaired or replaced, and there's never enough funding available to do the types of upgrades and repairs that we want. But I appreciate that we all work together to certainly do what we can, and we know that better days are coming.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you for the encouragement, Mr. Martinez. Better days are coming. So do you have any closing remarks?
No, just
Okay.
happy to be here. Glad to be considered for a reappointment to this wonderful board.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for being here this morning.
Dara Eskridge.
Good morning, Ms. Eskridge.
Good morning. It's good to be with you all.
Yes, good to see you as well, sis. Thank you again for your service. Thank you for the time, not just taking out today, but in so many spaces that you intentionally create across our entire region, for that matter, not just the city of St. Louis. So thank you for your willingness to serve on this board. I'll go ahead with questions. Alderman Cone. Commission, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, just going to echo my sentiments that I've shared with the others. I think it's pretty clear that this is a role that will take a lot of effort and work, and certainly appreciate your willingness to, take that on and help the residents that we're supporting, and also the city as a whole. Thank you.
Alderman Brownie.
No questions. Again, thank you for being willing to serve.
Right, I'm sorry, Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for being here today, ma'am. Same question. Are you a new appointment or reappointment to?
I am a new appointment.
Okay. And what is the kind of the reason that you wanted to be on the Housing Authority Board when you looked at the boards and commissions?
One, I was asked to serve, and I try to say yes to support my city whenever I'm able to. And two, because I have a background in affordable housing and community development, have also worked for housing authorities before, and believe very deeply in the dignity of home, and understand the housing authority is an essential leader in providing that.
You said you had some experience in like housing authority in other municipalities, or could you elaborate a
Yes,
little bit?
outside of the region.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked for housing authority in Connecticut.
Okay. Well, appreciate your willingness to serve, and hope your new appointment on this board could be very helpful for moving the city forward. And thank you again for willingness to serve on this board and commission.
All right, Vice Chair Sanye.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in serving. Just the same question as before. What has been, and I guess for you, you can say what you look forward to as well. What do you, I guess the question for you would be reframed as like, what do you most hope to gain and to learn from serving, and what do you anticipate the biggest challenge to be?
I hope to gain even deeper understanding of the experiences of the residents living within the assets of the Housing Authority, and how best to support them in, being fully integrated within our community, and also learning about innovations across the country for housing authorities and how we might be able to implement them here for our own agency. And challenges I foresee is, it's a big task. There are lots of assets that, need some tending to, and it's a very public process, which can be very rewarding, but also presents just lots of complications and care in how we carry out public processes. So that always, brings some challenges with it, but I am looking forward to the challenges.
Thank you.
All right, any closing remarks?
Just it is an honor to be asked to serve. Thank you.
Thank you again. And I can testify personally that she always says yes, and she doesn't unwillingly say yes. She doesn't hesitantly say yes. And when she says yes, it's a yes not just for her, but for community, for people, for generations, for the greater good. So thank you for your yes, Dara. I'm sorry, Ms. Eskridge. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, the other two appointees, unfortunately, just for clarity, I want people to know that this is a volunteer position. So, and this is more times than most not the only thing that these people, these volunteers sign up to do. Is on top of their regular responsibilities. So them not being here is no sign of them not being able to do this job properly, not being able to engage and participate the way that we would need them to. They just had a scheduling conflict. And so we did receive written written comments, and we always had their bios as well. So I think that the work that's already been done through the St. Louis Housing Authority, I think we just had an example of that when HUD launched, chose to launch their new regional hotline from St. Louis City, from the St. Louis City Housing Authority, and our fearless leader over there, Latasha Barnes, our ED. I think we've seen the work that they're doing amidst the challenges that we heard today, and we already have been exposed to as well. So we are here committed to support them in their efforts, and this is a step in supporting them to their efforts, securing their commission spots so that they can get to work. So with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the mayoral's appointments to the St. Louis Housing Authority Committee.
Point of order.
Okay.
I would ask that we divide the question on Ms. D'Souza who is a new appointment, and also Ms. Eskridge, who's also a new appointment, who's actually from my ward. I hear you, Alderwoman, that this is a voluntary position, and it is appreciate all the individuals that can be here, but I also think this is a very big, important board, and with new appointments, it would be good to just get a little bit more understanding of why they want to serve. I think it would have been different if, maybe it was a SID board, but this is a large board that affects housing. Yes, we have the resumes, but it would be great, hopefully maybe we can work with the mayor's administration, Mr. Michael, who do boards and commissions, to figure out how we can be able to allow the two new appointments to come in front of this committee so that we actually can hear from them before we just vote on them outside of their resume. So I would make
I'm sorry, Alderman Aldridge, Ms. Eskridge was here. That's who we just heard from.
Not Ms. Esker, you're right. Sorry, I was looking at someone else. So I would just divide the question on Ms. D'Souza. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, and you did receive her written comments with the apology for not being able to person?
I did notice
Okay.
that. So I would like to make a motion that we divide the question on the appointees.
Okay. So you want to just make the motion for it by name for the ones that you,
Or I'll say I would like to make a motion that we approve all the reappointments and new appointments besides Ms. Rachel D'Souza.
Second.
it's been moved by Alderman Aldridge and seconded by Vice Chair Sanye that we approve all of the mayoral's appointments to the St. Louis Housing Authority with the exclusion of Ms. D'Souza.
So noted.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Sonier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 5 aye votes.
All right, and we will work with Dr. McLemore on Alderman Aldridge's request. So then we'll move back in the agenda now to Alderman Browning. You are recognized on Board Bill 139.
Yes, hello. I believe it should be Board Bill 140.
Okay, on the agenda, they had it 139 first, so you want to do 140 first? Or did you want to take 139 off?
Sorry, I'm just trying to look at the agenda here to myself.
Okay,
Something's mislabeled.
okay.
Sorry, it's 139. You're right. Okay, yeah. All right, we'll proceed with 140 or 139, I mean. Again, apologies, I can't be there in person today. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so please bear with me. I am happy to introduce today Board Bill 139. This is it's an issuance of a taxable industrial development revenue bond. This is for a project concerning a company that is moving to St. Louis that is going to be putting its offices in the Cortex district. This company is named in the documents as C2N Diagnostics. It is a leading company that addresses Alzheimer's disease. If anyone has been affected by this disease or their loved ones have been affected by this disease, they know what a very serious thing it is. And this company would put St. Louis on the map when it comes to addressing this really awful disease that affects so many. We have representatives from the Cortex Innovation District with us today, as well as representatives from SLDC to speak on this if you have any questions. And at this time, I'd be happy to turn it over to them for more details. So please welcome my first guest speaker, and I'm sorry I cannot see who's in the room, so they'll have to introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Dan Burke. Thank you, Alderman. I'm counsel for Cortex.
Okay. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just here briefly to explain that Board Bill 139, Board Bill, excuse me, 140, and Resolution 203 all generally relate to the same project. And so what we thought we would do is have Sam Fiorello, CEO of Cortex, present about the project, go through some slides, and then the attorneys in SLDC can address the more of the technical details, if that's all right with you.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman.
Good morning. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank all of you, all of the members of the HUD's Commission for your service and allowing me to have a chance to talk about this important project and to tell our case. We have some slides that we'll put up and run through. And in the slide deck, I will go over a number of things. One, there'll be a bit of a geographic context to remind folks about Cortex. I'll give a little bit of the Cortex history, some project details, some construction updates on work that Cortex has done over the last years and with a lens on MBE, WBE work. Some information on TIF impact to date, and the last slide on the ask. But before we do, I wanted to talk a little bit about the why all matters and what Cortex is about. Cortex's mission, yes, ma'am.
Can you state your full name?
Yes. It's Sam Fiorello, and I'm president and CEO of Cortex. So Cortex's mission is, as you can see on the slide here, accelerating inclusive economic growth in cities. We are focused on the tech industries, but we advance inclusion into our economic growth with intentionality. We want to make sure that we can try to drive inclusive growth, not just growth. And the ways we do this are by serving as an engine for economic activity, and that is through jobs. And those are both jobs that we recruit companies to our city, and also that we keep homegrown companies here and let them grow and thrive here and make sure that folks then have a chance to work in those jobs. The project we're going to talk about today is a project, the owner of the project is our partner, Washington University. And I have to say that, give them a shout out because just to give you a context, the investment that they have made in this project, no for-profit developer would have done this and taken on this kind of upfront risk. The idea here is to provide affordable laboratory space that's super expensive and specialized, but to make it as affordable as possible so that early stage companies can afford it. And they do things like take a chance on the balance sheet of these companies. They don't require a real robust balance sheet. They'll take a risk there. They also share some of the upfront costs, and they'll have flexibility on the term. And that is, and their total investment is a couple $100 million, approach a couple $100 million. And it's a real risk and a real investment. So I want to give them a call of thanks before I dove into these slides. But this is the kind of thing that we need to do to continue to spur economic growth in our city. First slide, please. This is just a reminder of our TIF area. It's broken down into RPAs. That RPA that we're talking about is an RPA 4. The project we're talking about is RPA 4. It's the RPA that's circled there. It's on Forest Park Parkway, west of Van Devetter and east of Boyle. Next slide. So this is a bit of a timeline to show you the growth of Cortex has had over the years. I don't have to go through all of it, but you will really see in these slides, starting back in 2014, 2015, there were investments made and buildings started to grow. The 200-acre parcel of Cortex, which was formed officially in 2002, back in its founding had about 250,000 square feet of developed space. And by developed, it was really a lot of sort of poorly used older industrial complexes. Today, it's over 3 million developed square feet. There are over 6,000 people who are employed in the Cortex district, and it's over 420 plus companies. And again, we focus on tech and life science companies. Next slide, please. You continue to see more of the growth and more of the progression. This is something that didn't happen overnight. This is decades in the making to get to the point where we are today. Next slide. So it was a unique master TIF that was created in 2013. It gave us flexibility to activate RPAs over time. All the RPAs supported infrastructure, public realm improvements benefiting the entire district and area-wide projects. Cortex pursued area-wide projects early and aggressively with the city's agreement, and the future RPAs would pay down these investments. And Cortex bears the risk of repayment, not the city. I just want to make that clear in this slide. Next slide, please. The TIF redevelopment project area RPA 4, as I mentioned, was approved and activated actually in 2023 when we activated another RPA, RPA 6. But at the time, we foresaw that this project was in the works, that we were hoping that we would get to some catalytic events. I know that Washington University, the owners, applied for federal and state historic tax credits and waiting to hear if those were in fact approved and we can go forward. But we did say to the TIF Commission at the time that we would come back and when we had more of a detailed plan, a specific plan, and come back to y'all and ask for permission. We met with the TIF committee a couple weeks back and presented and got their approval to move forward to this point we are now. Next slide, please. So some of the project elements of the project we're talking about. It's a 7-story tower. It's eligible for federal and state historic tax credits. As I've mentioned, the project is a little over 160,000 square feet. And the program includes lab-enabled space for startups and early-stage companies. And again, that's a vital offering that's missing in our city. One area of economic growth in the real estate area is lab space, life science especially. If you look at some peer geographies, places like Chicago and Boston and Baltimore and on, you'll have 20 and 30% vacancy in lab space. Here in St. Louis in our MSA, it's about 5%. So it's an acute need, and certainly at Cortex, we have very, very little vacant lab space. And so when the opportunity like a C2N comes along, a homegrown technology working on, as Alderman Browning said, a really important area of Alzheimer's drugs and medications, we really need to find a way to keep those companies that are growing and doing important work, not only for the region, the city, the region, the state, but the world. And so that's what we're trying to do today, is find a way to put together a package that C2N, which is obviously, as you can imagine, being courted by a lot of municipalities. It's a very attractive enterprise built on great science, and it's going to grow. In fact, we've been competing with a location in Chicago and one in Boulder, Colorado, to try to win this project. And our offering of these TIF dollars to the owners to make these improvements is vital. In fact, the project really won't happen unless we get this TIF over the line. You'll see some slides coming up with some details of the project. These are photos, a little bit of early work that was done, but that's early work that was done mandated by the historic tax credits. The project is still waiting to have robust start date for the approval of this package here and these incentives. Next slide, please. So again, this is just to give you more of a visual, the project site. Prior to commencement, you're looking here, south, aerial view, that's Forest Park Parkway. That's the Goodwill Industries building. There's a small connector building in between, and then a western low-rise building. Next slide. And what the owners did is they kept the initial historic tower, the tower that's being contemplated here, the one that will hold the lab space, and then demolished the low-rise connector and the western building, and will, in phase 1, renovate the tower. And if we're so lucky and continue to have growth, there'd be a phase 2 eventually. And there'll be a green connector from Forest Park Parkway going south into the Cortex district. Next slide. So a little bit more facts of the project. This is a multi-tenant building, as I said, over 160,000 rentable feet, mostly lab enabled. The mix would be about 70% lab, 30% office. Total development costs for the owners are going to incur $93 million. And if you start to look at the cost that the tenants will put in to fit out that lab fully working space, that number could double. It's very expensive proposition to build lab space, especially the kind of lab space that we're talking about to make Alzheimer curing type drugs. There are 350 plus permanent jobs with an average salary of $108,000 is being contemplated for this, the kinds of jobs that will be in here. Historic renovations and tax allocations have been secured by the owners. And again, the mandate here, we already have we have for-profit developers in the district who've made great investments, but it's a different kind of a tenant that will fit there. This is targeting more affordable lab space. It's going to be a riskier tenant with less healthy balance sheets, so earlier stage growing. And there'll be, in addition to the flexibility in price, the lower price, there'll be terms of do it for a year or 2 years versus most for-profit developers will insist on a 5+ year. And so working with the owners, we really said this is a need that Cortex has to both, again, recruit companies, but also to keep homegrown companies in our city so they can grow and grow jobs and economic activity. The projected TIF for this project is up to $4 million, which is requested for RPA 4 to secure this anchor tenant. It's been in the paper now. That anchor tenant is C2N. Project status is limited scope of work, as I said, has been done to date. Much of it is mandated by the historic tax credits from both the federal and state authorities. The tenants have, potential tenants, C2N has not signed their lease. It's really contingent on our ability to bring these resources to bear to get them over the line. The remaining scope of project, if we should be able to go forward and get these last pieces put together, the owners will move quickly, and the hope is to move the tenants in first quarter of 2026 into the space. And during 2025, as they continue to fit out that lab space, they and the Cortex team will aggressively look for life science companies from other parts of the country and world that could be convinced to move operations to St. Louis and grow their business here and land them in that space. Next slide. Just a couple of quick renderings of what the building will look like when it's completed. You see the owners have spent a good deal of energy and time trying to make sure that they continue to adhere to the sort of the old classic look of the building, but add a modern flair and make sure it blends into surrounding environments, both in Cortex and the surrounding neighborhoods. Next slide. It's an interior look of, again, this is a heavily lab building, so you'll see the kind of looks like this that tend to work in lab buildings. Next slide. Some work to date, as I said, some of the earlier packages that were being worked on. You can just see some images of some of the work in the last few months, really. Next slide. Again, you have an image there of some of the interior work there, the demolition repair, and really staging this project for moving forward. Next slide. We wanted to include this to make sure that you all knew that we have top of mind our work with aggressive work, proactive work, intentional work on both WBE and MBE contract. You see that we have ambitious targets and that over the last years, over a decade, we've adhered to those targets, surpassing some targets, hitting many targets, and this is over a large scale. This isn't just a one small project. This is 1.4 million square feet of work, $400 million worth of work, and we put this up here because, again, it's not an afterthought. We do this with intentionality. Next slide. We also include this slide to show that there have been economic benefits to the state and region and city with our TIF activation. And I've highlighted just the St. Louis Public Schools. The number that you see there is over 16, almost $17 million of accretive or net positive taxes have gone to the St. Louis Public Schools due to Cortex TIF activity. So it's a vibrant economic engine for many of these entities. Again, you have all the details, but I just wanted to call out the one, that is the St. Louis Public Schools impact. Next slide. So here's the final slide, and that's the ask. The requested action by Housing Development and Zoning Committee is to favorable recommendation of the bills before you.
All right, thank you so much. Did you have anyone else with your group that wanted to speak?
No, That's it, ma'am.
Okay, okay, we'll go ahead and let SLDC come up, and then we'll start with the questioning.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'll have Andrew Knapp come up to talk about the community scorecard, then we'll have Jake Neer up to fiscal score. Thank you.
Andrew, excuse me, Andrew Knopp, SLDC. So here is, hopefully in their packet, you'll see a page of the community benefits scorecard, and I'm just going to run down the line. So we get to a total score of 51 points, which is tier 3. As far as abatement is concerned, which is relevant to the personal property tax abatement, that qualifies it for up to a 25-year abatement, first 10 years at 90%, followed by 50% in the remaining 15 years. And this also makes it eligible for the TIF that is in front of us too. So the first category is job creation. We get a 9 out of 9 points for this. C2N, the tenant that we've been referencing, is expected to create 172 full-time jobs. And then the remaining space could create an additional 250 or so. So even just the C2N part itself, which is more certain, obviously, gets it to the top tier of this points category. So 9 points for jobs created. It's a large capital investment, nearly $100 million, 93+ million investment. Again, the top tier of this category, 7 points for this. So within the, it's very close to the Cortex Metrolink station, so has great transit access. 7 points for this. C2N itself is in one of the city's target industries of biotech, so we're attracting, in this case, keeping a company in our region that's in one of our target industries. So 5 points for this. 5 points for geography. It's located in Economic Justice Index Area 4. So there's a reminder that goes down to 5. The 5 being 0 points awarded. So some modest amount of points being rewarded for its location in this area. Historic preservation. So we are preserving the building built in 1926, and there's going to be the modern addition, but we're preserving that building, so 5 points for that. Again, back to a couple more categories related to jobs. Jobs are being created within one of our city employment districts, so trying to concentrate employment in certain areas and the benefits that can produce. Cortex Employment District, 5 points. All of the C2N jobs that are expected to be quality according to our criteria, so very high paying jobs. All positions are expected to be full-time and pay, excuse me, and pay from $55K to $125K. So 5 points for job quality jobs. As has also been mentioned and related to the historic, excuse me, preservation, they are going to be seeking outside funding in the form of state and federal historic tax credits, 2 points for this. And then finally, there is, so 10% of the TIF now, or approximately $400,000, would be funneled to the city's strategic growth fund, which those monies would be used to fund infrastructure projects and qualified census tracts. And this, meets our criteria for a community benefits contribution. And that amount of $400,000 qualifies it for 1 point. So again, total of 51 points, tier 3, eligible according to SLDC's policies for both the personal property tax abatement and a TIF. It's a great project that will renovate a historic building for C2N. Its uses, it's in the target industry of biotech, great job creator of quality jobs within our employment district, good transit access, and the other benefits I've mentioned. So happy to answer questions about this scoring or other things, or we can move along to Jake for the fiscal impact analysis.
Are there any, or Alderman Cone, do you have any questions, or would like him to proceed?
I'm fine if they continue.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Jake Narup. I do financial analysis for SLDC. I'm happy to walk you through the numbers on this one. We realize it's a little bit unique in how it's structured. It is sort of a project within a project of the larger Cortex district. So I think what's important here is that we're kind of just focusing on the $35.5 million build out for C2N here. So this is separate from the broader $94 million RPA 4. And so the $4 million TIF that's attached to that RPA is not included as a funds for the build out of the tenant in this instance. So when we're looking at the 70% abatement on personal property taxes, that accounts for about $23 million of that total $35 million budget. That personal property we assumed is acquired over 2 years at kind of a mix of 5 and 7 year depreciation schedules. Again, that is not subject to the TIF, so no incentive against the personal property is affecting the payoff of the TIF, nor is the sales tax exemption on the construction materials impacting the TIF. So we have estimated abatement value of about $990,000 for the personal property tax abatement, and sales tax exemption is worth about $286,000. So that would total about 4% of project costs. When we modeled it, we did include the impact of the TIF when we're talking about a total fiscal benefit to the city and the other taxing districts. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. The TIF is not impacting the incentive, but it is impacting kind of those top line numbers for the taxing districts because of the impact on the other economic activity taxes, primarily payroll and earnings taxes, as well as the impact on real property tax increases. So when we're looking at a 10-year benefit to the city, we have an estimated value of about 1.6 million, increasing to about 5.4 million over 25 years. It's a slightly longer window. Typically, on the back end, we look at these over 20 years, but we want to capture the benefit when that TIF expires. So revenue impacts to the school districts are 944,000 over 10 years, increasing to about 3.8 million over 25 years. And the other 9 taxing districts we include as one lump sum, 322,000 over 10 years, increasing to 1.3 million over 25 years. So during that TIF period, the kind of primary driver of tax revenue is the payroll and earnings taxes on the 172 jobs that are created here. It accounts for about 65% of the total tax revenue, with about 15% from personal property and then 20% on real estate taxes. I realize this one's a little bit unique and a little bit complicated. We will perhaps get in the weeds on the broader RPA 4 and Board Bill 140. But for the purposes of Board Bill 139, we're just looking at C2N and the tenant build out there. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have Alderman Cone or members here? Do you all have any questions for them? You want to hear from? I'm talking about before we go into public comment.
I would go after public comment.
Well, they offered the question, so that's all I was asking. Thank you.
Alderwoman, we have a representative from the comptroller who would like to speak also.
Good afternoon. If you could just state your name for the record and your title.
Yes, I'm Charles Salisbury from the law firm of Salisbury and Associates. I've been assigned by the Comptroller's Office to oversee the legal documentation associated with the projects that you all are looking at. And accordingly, I have had an opportunity, actually an honor and a pleasure, to take a look at the documents that you all have seen, as well as the underlying legal documents. And it's very clear to me, and I've expressed this to the Comptroller, that you're looking at a very novel and innovative program that is enhancing the development and redevelopment of a vital area of the city. With that said, the Comptroller has no objection to moving forward with the projects that have been discussed so far. And I'm speaking specifically about the three projects that you're looking at, which is Board Bill 139, 140, and Resolution 203. So she's looking forward to authorizing me to help close out those deals, assuming that this committee sees its way toward sending it on to the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Aldermen to take their action along with ENA. Are there any questions from the Comptroller's office?
You sure?
Okay. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else from the teams that wanted to speak before we move to public comment? All right. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We have one person,
Okay.
Dayton Brown.
Okay. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right. You may proceed.
Awesome. In regards to Bill 139, I would like to thank the Cortex District for their bringing that to the area there on Forest Park. And if to the general population and to the Board of Aldermen, the tax exemption is a request to therein allow individuals working, including but not limited to the company itself, and individuals employed under the company to therein be employed under the status of independent contracting, similar to someone that braids hair or does independent contracting, where W-2 therein has different mandations and taking out certain types of taxes initially from the check. I am not opposed to seeing. It is very common in independent contracting to therein do your job as an independent contractor and not under the W-2 status. If that therein is allotted for individuals to work under the status of independent contracting due to the eligible requirements therein individuals working in that manner, I would like to see the project work hand in hand with back to work programs from our correctional facilities, including but not limited to the Urban League and things of that nature, so individuals that are out of correctional facility detention therein have the eligible ability to therein work without the mandations from the federal government authorized by the city government to therein work as an independent contractor with this project. If that is where the tax exemption request is coming from on the standpoint of the Cortex District, I am not opposed.
Thank you so much. All right. Is there anyone online that wanted to speak?
No one has raised their hand.
Okay. So now we'll move forward with questions. Alderman Cone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually going to switch over to my laptop. My phone battery is dying. So could you go through other members of the committee while I'm taking care of that?
Absolutely. Alderman Aldridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I guess my first question for the representative from the Comptroller Office, just so I'm clear, I'll wait till you come up. So I'm clear, you don't work for the city, you work for a legal firm that the Comptroller has hired for this project?
Yes, I work for the law firm of Salisbury and Associates, and we have been retained by the city to oversee the Cortex matters and to review all of the documentation and to report back to the city council's office and the comptroller's office.
Okay. Is any way that to some limitation, some of those documents on your legal review of this project could be shared with the Board of Aldermen?
I don't understand your question, I'm sorry.
Did you provide the comptroller like legal documentation of why you think this is a good project for the city?
Well, at this point, the question is, the comptroller has not yet weighed in on the legal documents because they're still in draft form and a part of the board bills. But when the time is right and those documents are ready to be executed, at that point, I will render an opinion to the Comptroller's Office and the City Council's Office, indicating my view of the documents and my view that those documents are appropriate to be signed. That is something that will occur later in this process. At this point, we're looking for legislative approval of the process, and that's why I'm here to express the Comptroller's non-objection to where we stand at this stage.
Okay. I think just during this process, because this is a kind of a unique, different, I think, as one of the individuals from SLDC said, it's different than like a current TIF. I know this is a TIF district, but having that legal kind of, what's your insight and your expertise as a lawyer of the benefit if MO or not the final document, you know, you say wait to the legislation process. Well, this is kind of part of it, and the more information that can be provided on the benefit from like a legal stance, I think would have been helpful prior to the committee. Just as a new member also that is dealing with this kind of nuance of a not only a TIF district, but this is a TIF note, I do believe that they will be pulling down from. So,
yes. And if I may comment on that, I appreciate your insight and your questions, and the fact that you are on top of things. That is very much so appreciated by the Comptroller's Office and by me personally. Please note that I have read every line of every document so far, and that we are in very good shape. The documents are in substantially excellent shape, and I think that if you all are willing to pass this on to the Board of Aldermen, I think that we are in excellent shape to be able to bring these deals together in a way that you all will find very imaginative and very appropriate for the city.
understood. And the only thing that I would again just echo, I think your legal expertise as this process moves, it would be as you're representing the Comptroller's Office, outside of just saying, you know, you spoke with the Comptroller, you all have, you know, having actual documentation as the process is moving so that we can see a clear on white paper with black ink of where the Comptroller and the legal department from the Comptroller's Office stand on this project, so that that can be an informed decision before any vote is taken or a vote not taken.
Rest assured, that is definitely the case today and will be the case as we move through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I think Vice Chair Sanye had another question for you, sir.
Oh, no, I was saying Alderman Cone could go.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Should I pause my question?
Go ahead. You have another question?
For
Okay.
SLDC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So just for clarity and for clarification, you all just sent out this packet to the Board of Aldermen at 10:47, roughly 13 minutes before the HUD's hearing, correct?
Correct, yes.
Just so I'm clear, because I find your packet to be very helpful when making informed decisions, and I know prior to the board bill being filed, this packet wasn't attached, which is not only helpful for members of the committee, but I also think for transparency for members who want to follow the legislation to be able to make sure that that's posted with the clerk and it's online. I guess what was the delay of getting this to the alders and also to the general public?
No, this is a great question. A lot of the information presented in the packet was presented to TIF Commission, and it was voted, and it was a public document. The issue that we had with this project, that it's very special, and hopefully we don't see these many in the future, but we were competing against other cities, and we couldn't announce a lot of the information inside the pack, especially the company. Cortex can probably go into greater detail on the competition piece of that. We're competing against 2 other municipalities with other incentive packages. So, and we had to align things up with the state before we announce it. So this hearing right now is the first time we are publicly announcing the company to the public.
Gotcha. And also, I want to be clear, I appreciate all the work, Mr. Wilson and all the other members of SLDC, the work that y'all do. And like I say, these packets are very helpful, and especially as you guys have been intentional on how you score projects. For me, getting it a few minutes before the meeting. Just I wish I would have had it sooner to be able to make an informed decision. Because like you say, this is a unique project that I don't think probably the first time it's come through the HUD's committee of at least my timeline. I don't know if something like that has happened or this type of project has happened in the past.
Correct. That's part of the problem we'll have in future competitive process. Sometimes we can't announce a company, so the pack is going to be a little difficult to maneuver in the future, but I'm open to any suggestions. don't like providing information, just a blank scorecard, like company X. I don't think that's helpful sometimes, but we pushed this as far as we could get, and then we got the green light to be able to share the company name with you. So in the future, we'll not do this, but I just want to make sure the Board of Aldermen is aware of what we're facing on our side when we're come across projects like this.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't know which twin it is, but it's on the analysis as far as like funds over the next 10, 15, 25 years of economic analysis. Appreciate both of the twins from SLDC. You guys always are very informative and crunch great numbers, so thank you so much. So looking at I guess it's page 9 on the analysis, can you explain a little bit of the stretch of timing and the timeline of why we won't see large revenue growth from this project to roughly, it looks like, 2045?
Sure. So there's a couple of sources of revenue kind of at play here. And with regards to Board Bill 139, the primary ones are payroll and earnings taxes and personal property taxes. We're abating the personal property taxes, and that's on equipment that's depreciating over time, which is why you actually see that school tax line kind of decrease for the first 10 years. That's the depreciation of the assets that we have the personal property tax abatement on. There's a little bump in 2036 when that personal property tax abatement ends, and those are now fully taxable. I will say this is a conservative estimate because theoretically, the tenant here is not making one investment in personal property when they occupy the space and then never making any additional investments after that. Theoretically, they would be acquiring more equipment as time goes on. The big bump that you see in 2046 is kind of the expiration of the broader Cortex TIF, when now all the real property taxes are now flowing back to the taxing districts again. So until that broader TIF expires, none of the incremental increase in real property taxes due to the renovation of the building will be realized.
So over the 10 years, if I'm reading it right, the new revenue for the school districts will be 944,000 and some change in that 10-year, and 15, 1.4, and then in 25, 3.8.
Right. And typically we would do a 10, 15, 20, but because we want to capture the taxes at the end of that TIF, we expanded it to 25, so you can get that big bump at the end and see what will be realized when essentially all of these incentives expire and everything's fully taxable.
But for the record, this is just a 10-year at 75, right? Or 70?
10 years at 70 on just the personal property, and then a sales tax exemption on construction materials, which I believe we estimated a cost of about $286,000.
Okay. Thank you. And then for the other twin, so on the scorecard, can you explain what so just for my clarity, it's not a huge question, but for the community benefits, what is this city strategic growth fund, and how is that 400,000 that will, I guess, come from this community benefit be beneficial to the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, so some of the details of how that got created might be better answered by someone else, maybe Zach or a lawyer or something like that. But it's now all TIFs going forward. 10% of the TIF revenues that are generated over time then get put into the city's strategic growth fund, which, as I mentioned before, funds can be used to fund infrastructure projects and qualified census tracts. And so it's not $400,000 upfront. It's as pilots and EATs are collected over the course of time. Those are then 10% of those are diverted into the city strategic growth fund to be used for those purposes. So, you know, it won't be $400,000 at one time, and it'll be over the course of time. And, you know, in some theoretical scenario, there would be other TIF projects that would be also funding that fund, and then, you know, projects can be then done with that money.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. My question now is to, I guess, the president and CEO of Cortex.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for the slideshow, and appreciate the work and your investment in the city, especially in the Cortex area. What is, from the board, Sam, what is your timeline on the project and needing to get this moving or done?
I think yesterday, I'm sorry to say, we've come down to, as has been mentioned over and over again, this is a very tough fight with a couple of other municipalities. They have a couple of advantages, frankly. Both of them have second generation lab space, which means tenants have been gone, it's built out, so it can be much lower cost. And two is that both the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the competition in Colorado, they have incentive dollars that they can throw at the project. So this is our tool. We're hoping to get to the point where we can get the tenants to sign official signed lease, and they have said they won't do that until they know for sure about this. So would love to have it done by sometime in January, so we could move this forward. And I wanted to make one point clear on sort of revenues in the future. This project, which we're talking about these incentives to help get it off the ground, will take 70,000 of the 160,000 square foot building, right? A building that it's been sitting there idle for many years, not throwing off revenue. We then will work aggressively to fill the rest of that building, the additional 90,000 square feet, with labs, with researchers, jobs. So that will be a catalytic event. So if you were to be able to add those numbers into this analysis for the building versus this specific project or the subset, those revenue dollars and economic impact to the city would go up exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify, this is a catalytic event. It is this developer, like any developer, is not going to do a building 100% spec. This early work is work that they've committed to with Historics. This is a catalytic event. If we can get C2N over the line and get them to yes, and get them to take 70,000, I'm very confident that we could then, at the price points that they've set and the kind of layout they've created, I'm confident that in 25 and early 26, we can have that building committed and then filled up. And then going forward then, like I said, it's over 350 jobs, and then the rest of the building is throwing off a lot of economic activity for the city.
So the Board of Aldermen moving on this, and you say the timeline by January, which is a very accelerated timeline. I think it would be in the near future for all developers, but you know, moving legislation so fast like this sometimes can be just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and puts the board in a we have to do this ASAP type of mind frame and kind of a rush. What is the commitment that if the board gets this done and across the finish line, is there a commitment from C to N that they're actually going to move to St. Louis, or is this just a tool that you all are trying to use with the other people that are competing for this to be competitive?
No, they're currently in St. Louis. So this is another thing about this project that's so exciting is when Cortex was envisioned, this is the sweet spot where you have technology at one of our anchor institutions This discovery that C2N is built on came out of WashU Labs, this Alzheimer's drug or test to test a drug. We have to be able to take, especially things like that, when there are companies formed with the technology built in our own city, we have to be able to figure out a way to keep them here and to grow here. That company has reached an inflection point because their blood test is the only test out there that can help with their 3 new Alzheimer's drugs on the market that have been given approval in the last year. The only way to tell if those drugs are working effectively at the right dosing is today you have to go get a PET scan, which is really expensive, takes a lot of time. Here with the simple blood test, you can really say, is this drug working for this patient? Is it dialed and dosed properly? So because these new drugs have come on the market, this startup, which had a lot of hopes and aspiration, has hit an inflection point and now will be a key supplier of a test for these 3 new drugs that are on the market that I believe, will be sold in the millions of doses. This is not only an exciting project for me, it's personal. I just, a month ago, lost my father to Alzheimer's after a long 6 years in a nursing home, and just see how debilitating it is. I think about if there were drugs a decade ago that could stop the progression of Alzheimer's in his brain and a test to see if it was working and to make sure the dosing was right, what could have been different for the last years of my dad's life? Take that story that's personal and multiply it by, I'm sure that every single person in this room has been touched by Alzheimer's, and it's devastating. And so this is not only a glimmer of hope for the world and people like us with loved ones, but for St. Louis to say this is invented here and created here and built here, and we will reap the benefits of these new jobs and this new economic activity, not somewhere else in the county or in the MSA, not somewhere else in the country, in the city of St. Louis. And that's why we're fighting so hard and pushing so hard for this.
Okay. But again, if this gets done, is this a guarantee that the expansion, I guess, of this company would stay here, or would they go somewhere else? Is this a tool that you guys are using?
If they get this is the last piece that they will sign the lease. And the good news is, if they weren't telling the truth and they say no, then we won't deploy this tool. So this is here to get this important tenant to sign a lease that will be catalytic to build a whole new building in Cortex that will allow us to have not only this company doing that work, but companies that are making devices to early test for things like bird flu and COVID and other things. We're working with a company, the founders out of New York City. And the problem, Alderman, is right now we have nowhere to put these companies. We have no vacant lab space. What this Goodwill building will do, and I'm thrilled about C2N as a standalone story, but I'm even more thrilled to say it is a catalytic event that will now give us Cortex inventory to land companies that are in Boston and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Indy, and say, you should grow your business here, and I'm certain we can do it.
Okay. I think my last question is, what is the hard deadline that the Board of Aldermen needs to act on your all's end to want to keep or this expansion or the project going?
I always see this on TV where someone leans to the council, so I get to do it now.
I mean, the session ends earlier this year, because of elections. And so that's part of the reason we're trying to move quickly. There was pressure to get it all done by the end of the year. That obviously can't happen right now. You only have one more meeting. Without special meetings, we're not asking for special meetings. And so the target is, if we can get your approval, we'd get read twice Friday, and then we would pass finally in January, at the first meeting in January.
It wouldn't be the first meeting in January. It has to, oh, well, never mind. I'm assuming there may be a strategy. Okay, never mind.
That's right. It is an expedited schedule, and we're grateful to Alderman Browning and SLDC for everybody working together to do this as quickly as possible, being responsive to, I can say their name now, C2N, who is pressing for it. And we believe this will push us over the line. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I guess my next question is for the alderman. Thank you, Alderman. So I see this as this is one of those ordinances that has to be approved by the Board of Estimate. Have they already approved this Board Bill 139?
That's a good question. I think it's recommended by them, but I don't know that they've approved it yet. Perhaps someone from SLDC can speak to that. I haven't, this has been moving pretty quickly, so I'm not sure if they were able to have a meeting before this meeting.
Yeah, I don't think ENA met today.
So they're scheduled to meet next week, and we've requested inclusion on their agenda for that meeting.
It has not been approved yet, so it would have to go this month's ENA or next month's ENA.
So if they don't make it on this month's ENA, next month's ENA would be after January, so that'll be past the
I think the key here is that we know the mayor's office is in support. We know the president's office is in support. That's 2/3 of ENA. So that's not a unknown in this situation. I think the key mile marker that we're trying to get past here is board approval. And we have been in contact with, and I'll let Cortex speak to this, but we have been in contact with the tenant, and they said, perfection would be something that would commit the board to it, and that they would feel comfortable moving forward. And I forgot to mention the comptroller. Of course, we heard from the comptroller today as well. So we're positive this will pass ENA, and that's not something that's in doubt. We just need to keep it moving at the board.
Yes, I mean, and I'm glad that the president, the mayor, and the comptroller all support it. I mean, we've seen this with, I think, the previous legislation where we was rushing it and it wasn't on the ENA agenda. So I guess my question is, does it have to be, as much as I know Cortex, you all want this done today? We just received the documents at 10:47. We're, if it's not on ENA next week, clearly then it's drug out to probably the middle of January, which still doesn't meet you all's deadline, which means maybe the committee didn't have to rush this through and could have had a little bit more robust conversation or information on it. So that's what I'm asking of. We get a lot of bills that are recommended by ENA, but doesn't mean they always take them up. And I know your previous bill also was like similar to this. It was recommended by ENA, but ENA hasn't picked it up. So I'm curious of the timeline of this being taken up by ENA, and is this going to be on the agenda next week? And then if not, if it's middle of January, that goes back to, I think, again, to a previous bill, we didn't need to rush everything so fast. I think to the president, CEO, you had a compelling testimony about the benefit that this can have. And I don't think I definitely don't want to stop this project, but I think process is important to know. If we make this decision, what does that process look like if we don't make the decision? And there's also, outside of us, there's another board that has to approve this, that have not approved this yet, which will change the timeline that you all are looking to do or not to do. And I think that's important information just to have, to know how we're moving forward, so that we all can figure out how we can move forward together if there are concerns with this new kind of TIF process that is at least new for me. I'm sure probably not for Alderwoman Clark Hubbard or Alderman Shane that have probably dealt with something like this. So maybe getting that answer, I don't know, Alderman, if you can reach out or text. There's other folks that will have questions, like text Nancy Cross or Director or the President's office. No.
Chief of Staff for the Mayor, Jared Boyd, has been in communication with me just now and says that they will get the ENA issue figured out. So I would defer to him. Obviously, I can't speak to what ENA is going to do. I'm not on that board, and the President's office couldn't join us today. But we know that issue will be addressed, and I'm not concerned there. I think, just to speak to it, the only uncertain aspect is our board at this stage.
May I speak to that?
Absolutely.
I had a long conversation with the comptroller concerning these three measures, and she anticipates that the three measures will be on the agenda for the upcoming upcoming E&A meeting. Protocol dictates, however, that the mayor's office will actually submit the bills for inclusion on the agenda. But the comptroller expects that that will be done and that the three measures will be taken up at the upcoming E&A meeting.
Thank you so much. Glad you're able to be here.
That concludes all my questions, Madam Chair.
All right, Alderman Cone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also just want to thank everyone for their time this afternoon and this morning. I have had many conversations with colleagues and others about what we have before us today. I believe Sam is in the room from Cortex, and he and I have had many conversations, or at least a few conversations in the past regarding my position on Cortex. I am very supportive of Cortex, the work that they do. I'm impressed with the development that has happened within this district. I think that many of us know that this district is a national example of something that St. Louis has done right, and something that our region needs in order to continue to grow and thrive, and also has done its part in terms of economic development and bringing retail and other opportunities into an area that otherwise did not have them prior to this being established. That being said, after we had our last meeting with respect to another tax incentive within this Cortex area, I received an email from an employee at the WashU Medical real estate group that chided me over my remarks and kind of history with respect to my position with Cortex, and I have been consistently a no vote on anything within the Cortex boundaries, not because of the merits per se of any individual project, but because of the lack of initiative that the city has in providing the same developmental incentive opportunities within North St. Louis and Southeast City. Cortex, as I've mentioned before, is part of a Chapter 353. I have had a long history down here trying to be able to deploy those very resources within underserved communities in North St. Louis and Southeast City specifically, and even more specifically within the Dutchtown neighborhood for Cleveland High School. And I've now had 3 administrations who have balked at the idea of providing a Chapter 353 for a variety of reasons, but what it comes down to essentially is that they don't want to provide those types of incentives for areas of the city that don't have long-standing, quote-unquote, long-standing institutions or institutions that have the financial resources to be able to do that. When you talk about doing policy that way, you are essentially saying that any community in North St. Louis or Southeast City would not be eligible for these types of incentive programs because they have lost those institutions over the last 60 years. While I might have, over the last 16 years, taken every opportunity to grow and create an environment in my ward for economic development and for housing development, and have had success creating partners, engaging partners, and bringing partners into my ward, there are still tools that we do not have access to. And the Chapter 353 is very much one of them. And so for that reason, the opportunities that I have to bring this up in my capacity as a legislator are when these types of incentive tools are being deployed within existing Chapter 353s. That would be Cortex, that would be the SLU Chapter 353, and I mean, frankly, those are the only two that are really active right now. But, you know, my no votes on these are reflective more so of the inequity that exists within our incentive structure. That being said, I have received, as I'm sure many of my colleagues have, questions, comments, concerns from the general public with respect to, this particular board bill and this incentive. And I think some of those questions were answered, but I do want to make sure that, we're clear with respect to where things stand, and ensure that we're doing things consistently. And I don't know if either Sam or Zach from Cortex or SLDC would like to answer this, but generally speaking, when we're providing incentives, I would hope that we're abiding by what we call a but-for test. So if the incentives did not exist, then the project would not move forward. And, I've heard public comment that, this project has already started, it's already underway. Some have even indicated that it is completed. And I think it's important for us to just make sure that we're, one, answering and asking and answering that question, to ensure that we are kind of passing muster with that but-for test. So Zach or Sam, if you'd like to respond, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks, Alderman Cohn. First thing I'll say for the record is, not only would I not send an email chiding you, I really respect, since we first met, I started at Cortex in March of 2020. I think I met you later that year. You've been clear and consistent on your position, and I respect it. And I expected this vote. I mean, you told me then that was your position. So I think when government works well, people come to the table with a contest of ideas, and you've articulated a strong case, and so I respect that. All I can tell you is that things that we know that the developer's saying that they can't go ahead with this building 100% spec, that they need a large anchor tenant. We know that that large anchor tenant, which happens to be a fantastic fit, is C2N. We're looking at 70,000 square feet, life science, important drug again for Alzheimer's, a homegrown technology that we hope not only to grow here, but to keep here. It would be a double shame if they move and grow their business to another locality. They, through their broker, have indicated to us that this incentive to help bring down the cost of their infrastructure is vital for them to get to yes. They have not signed their final lease yet. They have negotiated it, but they've held it. So I believe, Alderman, that this is a condition proceeding to. That's what they've told me, and that's all I can go on.
Okay. And just so along the lines of the incentive itself, will this property be utilized for nonprofit purposes, or is this a for-profit entity? And will there be real estate taxes paid or generated, increased property taxes generated from the redevelopment?
It will be tax-bearing project for the building. There'll be all the tenants in there would be paying taxes.
Not the tenants. I'm talking about the property itself. So is the property itself
yes
going?
Yes, I'm sorry. The property will be generating taxes. Yes.
Okay. So as part of the TIF note, are we including the real estate tax, the earnings tax? What are we including in the TIF note?
Again, the TIF note, Alderman, is for a subset of the full building. It's for a 70,000 square foot, that's C2N's footprint. It covers that footprint. And so the rest of the building, the 90,000 square feet above that, will all be fully tax bearing on all real estate.
So, but will that only be for the real estate component? Because I know in some other TIFs that we've done, we've included the earnings tax in that as well.
Alderman, this is part of the Cortex TIF, which operates like any other TIF, and so it does get funding TIF revenues from pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes, real estate taxes effectively, and EATS, economic activity taxes. So that would include earnings tax and real estate tax.
Okay.
Did that help?
Okay. Yes. So, and then for C2N, I believe is the company that is doing research around Alzheimer's and
Yes.
providing. It's C2N, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Do we know the terms of their lease agreement yet?
Do we know? Like, what years or? What specifically, Alderman? The years, how many years?
Yeah, I mean, TIFs are usually, 20 to 25 year, debt obligations that we're taking on. Are they planning to lease for that amount of time? Or is this just a 1-year lease, a 5-year lease, a 10-year lease? What are we talking about here?
15-year lease.
Okay. And then with respect to the project and where it is from a completion perspective, I know you kind of touched base on it. It's underway, but it's not yet completed. Do we know percentage-wise how far along that is? And is there a time frame on when it would be completed? So kind of going back to my colleague from the 14th Ward and the timing of passage of this.
Yeah. We can, Alderman, what I know for sure is that we've been given and told C2N that if we can move forward with this now, that they can move in first quarter of 26. So this is the early work. If we get to a yes and they sign the lease, then the rest of the package will be let in earnest, and there'll be aggressive construction. So it's 15-month project.
And just to emphasize one point that was in the slides, only part of the project is underway. So it's not the full build. We're not, going ahead and everything's signed, sealed, and delivered, and this is an afterthought. That's absolutely not the case. We only came before you to ask for this when the C2N opportunity presented itself. And the C2N opportunity requires an upscaling of the project. So it's one project, but it wouldn't all happen but for this incentive, if that clarifies.
Okay, so we have a project that's underway, but now we have a new tenant that is potentially moving into the building that will have a 15-year lease agreement. Due to the opportunity of that 15-year lease agreement, we want to amend or come forward with the TIF to essentially generate additional revenue for the development of the project to accommodate the new tenant that's coming in.
And that's correct. And again, to clarify, thus far, the work that's been done, it's just been very much core and shell early work. That if we don't get this, the owner will have to put a pause and then put the whole building on hold and then stop its work. So, but yes, to answer your question, that was a good characterization.
So if we approve this and then the lease agreement, for whatever reason doesn't materialize, will you all just revert back to the original plans and then the TIF wouldn't be utilized?
Right. Absolutely. If you guys approve this, we move through and get all approval, and then the tenant says, you know what, we've reconsidered this, that we would not utilize those TIFs.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the additional information. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate your questions.
I think the sponsor of the bill mentioned that he's having conversations with the mayor's office regarding E&A. Alderman, does that mean that they are moving forward with an E&A meeting for this month?
That's my understanding as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that that's the best option for the record.
Agreed.
That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Sanya.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think you're first in my line of questions.
Hello, Alderwoman.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for taking my calls on this. I always try to my best to keep up. The good thing is the alderwoman, the chairwoman always announces on Friday that we have meetings, so I always go and look and see what's on there. I think I said this last time we had something, so this is not specific to this project, it's just in general. I also expressed this to Mr. Richardson. I really dislike this trend of like getting us the review materials really late. I know you mentioned that you had a tenant situation. I don't know what the solution is, but to me, you know, I take my responsibilities and duties and honor of serving on the committee very seriously, and I want the community to trust that I am doing my due diligence of oversight. And I cannot say that I'm doing my due diligence of oversight sometimes. Today is an exception because we had appointments, we had many things, so I was able to read through the packet, but it is, you know, almost borderline offensive to me that we get materials 10, 15, 20 minutes before. It's almost as if we're expected to just give a rubber stamp yes without having the time to review. I was able to review, but I just want to make sure that I'm being clear to you, because what I don't want to happen is there a project like this or something else that could be really good for the city, but because I didn't get the materials and didn't get to review in time, I have to say no. And this is my second time echoing it. So I am saying, like, I don't care what the next project is. If something else comes across, and I only speak for me, it's Alderman 7th, and I don't get it, I would like to have it at least preferably at the latest the morning of, so that I can have enough time, at least an hour or two, to look through, talk to you, ask my questions, talk to the sponsor if I need to. But I just really want to flag that we got to avoid this trend of getting the information to us at the last minute.
I appreciate that, and I will do that. TIFs are a little bit different. I do not produce port bills for TIFs projects. Tax abatements, I produce the development plans and TIF board bills, and that's board bills for tax abatements, and that's when we attach the documents. So you are correct. Last two projects have been kind of gray zone also. I want to be 100% upfront with you. Previous one was a TIF project that was passed before a lot of the other things, and we're doing some cleanup on the last piece. So moving forward, you will have all future documents. But I would also like to address, when we are competing against other municipalities, there is some carve out we might have to have further discussions on how to produce those materials for the Board of Aldermen, because I would like to have those ongoing discussions with you.
And, you know, I'm happy if there needs to be a separate policy, if we need a separate memo, or if you guys need to change your, because if you take the time to prepare all those materials and go through all those benchmarks, I think as a HUD's committee, we deserve the same respect to get time for consideration, and that needs to be baked into your timeline. So if it's impossible to share information with us, then I think there needs to be the understanding, hey, I know that this committee is not going to vote this through if I have to send them to them on the day of, so we're going to have to wait. So that's all that I'm saying. Like, if we need to do something on the back end to work out redacting out the organization, if you need our help to give you an ordinance or something to follow it, whatever the case may be. But I take oversight and I take serving on the committee seriously and being able to answer to my constituents and being able to talk to my colleagues and raise my concerns. So I just need enough time to be able to do that, and I will not do it in a rush again. I will just be.
No, I totally hear you and I appreciate it, and I will gladly work with you in the future.
Thank you. Okay. For my first question, I think you kind of spoke to this, but this company is currently located here?
Yes, they have a small footprint in our 20 South Sarah building and a small footprint in the building where BioSTL is. I think combined it's several thousand square feet. So the company's really hit an inflection point with these new drugs on the market.
Thank you. And is the idea, like you mentioned, that they have a smaller space? So I read through, and I think one of the good things that I put on the record that the project does, and make sure my analysis understand that the project is anticipated to create 172 jobs. The average annual wage is $92,000, but the range of wages is begins at about $55,000 and goes up to $125,000. I just want to clarify that my understanding of that wage is correct, and that all of those 172 jobs falls within that. And so the lowest job that would be created from this would be $55,000.
Yes, and those kinds of jobs, Madam Alderwoman, are the kinds of jobs that are lab technicians, for example. Just some hands at the bench, and Cortex and BioStell and others have had partnerships with St. Louis Community College for over a decade to help local residents get trained for those jobs. Those jobs are, like you say, starting salaries mid-50, they're good benefits, and the work with the community college training program, over half of those employed have been Black and brown St. Louisans.
And those are permanent jobs that will be permanently created?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Um, and do you know how many employees they have in their smaller space versus like if they are able to expand the lease to this proposed location?
I would guess, if I had to guess, it's going to be 20 employees or less, probably less. So it's a significant change. I mean, if you think about just the investments that a company like this needs to fit out lab space to make these kind of drug tests, um, it could be 2 or 3, sometimes $400 a square foot. So you multiply that by 70,000 square feet, it's tens of millions of dollars of investor dollars that will come in and build these lab spaces out. And then as we fill out the other 90,000 square foot, they will go from the owners of the building provide the infrastructure, the special power and heating and cooling. But when we recruit a company in, for example, the company that we're bringing from New York, they will then have to spend $300 a square foot. Let's say they take 30,000 square foot. That will be an investment in our city. And then going forward, those will be net new jobs. There'll be probably closer to 400 full-time net new jobs in that building.
So it would be fair to estimate that the movement and the lease going through in this deal would allow the creation of about 150 or so jobs. If they're currently at 20, it will be at about 172 if they're able to expand.
At minimum, I think, yes. And then, again, the thing that's catalytic is this isn't just a 70,000 square foot building. This on its own is a terrific win and a must win for St. Louis, but it enables us then to have the rest of the building built for us then to attract hundreds more jobs and tens of millions of more capital investments in labs.
That's a great segue to my next question. I saw that it noted that this project will involve about 93 million, almost 94 million, $93,828,125 in capital investment that was noted within the scorecard they received. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that 93 million entails? And just, I want to clarify for the public that that is an investment on behalf of the potential tenant.
It's investment to enable the entire building. So it's public realm improvements, infrastructure improvements, new additions to wastewater, power. But then the big cost for a lab building is you need special, like an emergency backup generator, right? If you have cells, human cell samples, like my dad's cells would have been sent in, you can't afford to have the power go down for an hour and destroy that. So there's emergency generators. There is special vents for the lab fume hoods. So there's a lot in mechanical, electrical, plumbing that is nowhere near a typical building. It's very, very expensive to do. And that's why, I mean, Cortex, in the 4.5 years I've been there, has had virtually zero available vacant lab space. We have vacant generic space, office space. There's a lot of that in the region. But for lab space, so that the challenge is when we start to grow a company out of WashU Med or St. Louis UMed or UMSL partner has a startup and they need labs, we're in a bind because we can't find a place for them to grow here. And what likely happens is they go out to Westport because there's some second generation lab space there. They don't grow in the St. Louis city. But we need that to not only keep our folks here who are thriving and wanting to grow. When we go out and meet a company and say, Washington University now is going to have the largest concentration of neuroscientists and science research in the world, 1,300 neuroscientists. And when you think neural, think all of these afflictions of aging, not just Alzheimer's and those kinds of diseases, but traumatic brain injuries and spinal injuries. Nowhere else in the world can say this is the greatest. We in St. Louis can and need to leverage that. So companies, both startups and then established companies that want to have a foothold near that, we have nowhere to put them right now. We have zero. So it's a shame because we've created something so valuable that we need a way to leverage that value and land it and turn it into economic activity for St. Louis and St. Louisans.
And I had this question, but it's specific to what you're saying. So is it the idea that attracting this lab here, placing this lab here will help to attract other labs? And are there plans to potentially use this space to expand and create additional lab space for other potential scientific, research companies and things of that nature?
Exactly right. So a real example, let's say this passes, we get C2N, they take 70,000 square feet. The building then the whole building is renovated and suitable for 90,000 more. There's a company here that's got different WashU Med technology. They make sensors to check rapidly and accurately for all kinds of diseases, COVID and influenza and a whole host of things, avian flu. The founders and the money are right now from New York. They're in a small footprint in 20 South Sarah, one of the Cortex buildings, our incubator. A year from now, they're going to need a lot more space than we can give them. If we don't have this building built and ready, they will have to go and grow elsewhere. Right now, we have nowhere to land these kinds of companies and have them grow. We need to be invested ahead. We need to be looking to where this thing is going to go, not just where we are today. So this is a vital catalytic event, huge celebration for C2N. It's a great celebration on its own, but it's only a part of a larger celebration that gives us an inventory of lab space to help other C2Ns stay and grow and attract C2Ns from other parts of the country to come here and say, I want to build my business in St. Louis.
Thank you. My next question, I think, is one for you, but it also might be for Mr. Wilson. There's an indication on your community benefits part that 10% of the TIF, or $400,000, is going to go to the city's strategic growth fund. Can I get some more information on what that specifically is?
All new TIFs that we move forward, we can put 10% of the total of the TIF amount into a fund that goes towards qualified census tracts for infrastructure in the predominantly North City and Southeast City.
So the city strategic growth fund, because I'm not familiar with it, is a fund where we put monies in it and then we prioritize the investment of that fund based on economic justice track?
Correct. Well, the issue is, since we haven't done TIFs in 2 or 3 years, there's nothing in that fund currently. So with this type of project moving forward, those funds would be put in that fund. The comptroller would hold those funds until this body or another body guides or directs those funds for future use.
And is the decision making, so I know previously we've done investments like into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as opposed to this. Is that just you guys figure out through your process?
I'll let an attorney speak on this, but I believe the state statute allowed for this to move forward, and a state or a law was passed about 2.5 years ago to allowing us to do this, and that's why we're doing it. So,
yes. Thank you. My name is Mark Spikerman. I'm an attorney with Gilmore and Bell. I work with SLDC.
Hello.
About 3 or 4 years ago, at the request of the city worked with its lobbyists to get an amendment to the TIF Act to create this Strategic Infrastructure Growth Fund. And as Zach mentioned, for TIFs going forward, 10% of the TIF revenues will be sort of redistributed to low-income census tracts for infrastructure growth or infrastructure investments that will hopefully lead to better development and better economic justice in those areas.
Thank you. And do you know what the allocation process is from the fund? Like if we do this, the money goes forward?
It will have to be budgeted and appropriated just like any other fund.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess Alderman Cone kind of asked some of my other questions. I don't know if you would have the answer to this, the owner, but I do, the owner. I don't know if you have an answer to this as Cortex, but you may not because it's very specific to the thing, and it is honestly more of a curiosity question. I think it's incredible. I did some research and just kind of took the time to look up their work, and I think the opportunity to be able to identify Alzheimer's from a blood test, Alzheimer's a lot of times is something people don't discover till it's far in its development, which makes it harder to catch. But even the testing is extremely intensive, can take months and months before people are even clear what it is. And obviously blood tests move a lot faster. So I'm just curious though, because for blood tests, sometimes you can get your results back in 24 hours. Sometimes it can take weeks. Do you know the research that they're working on and where they're at, what their estimations, maybe a range is of the timetable of a patient being able to get like a concurrent result from their test is?
I don't know the answer, but I do want to clarify without going too. There are 3 new drugs by bigger drug companies. So C2N is a startup, but there are 3 new drugs that's got FDA approval to say, when you take this, if you have early signs of Alzheimer's, it can help stop the plaques that grows in your brain that then causes the loss of memory and all the things that we see in Alzheimer's. There needs to be a way to say, Is this working for this individual? Is the plaques not growing? Is it the right dosing? And there's no tool today to be able to say those things so you can turn the dials, right? You have to go in and get a PET scan or another scan. It's very expensive and intrusive. What C2N's drug test
It may
does,
not even be approved from insurance companies sometimes, those more inclusive testing.
yes,
Mhm.
C2N's drug test is much less expensive. I don't know the details, but it's affordable, it's rapid, and it'll quickly give your doctor the information she or he needs to say, Mrs. Jones, this is working for you, and this is the right dosage. Or it seems to be working some, let's change the dosage. That's a really important tool that has to go along with these drugs to make them as effective as they can be. So where C2N doesn't have a drug to prevent Alzheimer's, they have a tool that the drug providers need so that, in my case, my father would have had, now his doctor would have had knowledge to say, this is working, or we need to do more of this, and if it worked like they hope and say, it would have stopped the progression so that he could have lived a more normal life.
Okay, thank you. That completes my questioning.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Ferrillo, before you could have stayed sitting because it's not a question. I just wanted to offer my condolences for your father. I can testify to caring for a loved one that suffers from Alzheimer's disease, dementia. The escalation of it, watching it is heartbreaking, but you never give up.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for sharing that one. And then again, wanted to offer my condolences and hope, right? Continue hope that we can share as witnesses of that to what this kind of change and this kind of work can bring. So thank you for that.
Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Did anyone else have any additional question? My questions were answered through the very thorough presentations that were offered today, and I didn't have any additional ones that came up during my colleagues' questions, but I did want to offer another round just in case. All right. Okay, Alderman Browning.
Thank you, committee. I really appreciate the time you've taken to thoroughly analyze this bill and hear from Cortex and SLDC, the Comptroller's Office, and a number of people today. As they've said, this is a really exciting project. This puts St. Louis on the map in a big way, and it really helps people who really need it. So I ask for your favorable consideration today, and again, thank you for your time.
All right, with that, I'll accept the motion.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 139 with the due pass recommendation.
A second. The motion was passed by Vice Chair Sanye, seconded by myself. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone,
No.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, Vice Chair Sonier,
Aye.
Alderman Browning,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge,
No.
Alderwoman Chair Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 3 aye votes and 2 no votes.
Right, that you successfully passed Board Bill 139. Thank you. We can move now to Board Bill 140. Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Let's keep this rolling. So we have Board Bill 140 in front of us. This is the issuance of a TIF note. Again, repeating that the TIF was activated last year, 2 years ago almost, but that this will issue the TIF note. And again, I would invite members of SLDC or Cortex to speak on this if you have any more questions.
Right, SLDC.
Thank you. Not to be a dead horse, but this board bill and the resolution coming back for, behind this one is all for the same project. This RPA was activated from TIF Commission in late 2022 and approved by this Board of Aldermen in early 2023. This is just allowing for the TIF notes to be issued for the project. My team will be happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Cone,
No questions.
Alderman Aldridge,
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. To Alderman Browning, another same question. Has this been through ENA yet?
Same answer, no, but we expect to take it up in December.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Sangha.
No questions. I should say no further questions.
Okay. All right. Did we have any speakers on Board Bill 140, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
Okay, and none online.
I'm sorry, we have one hand up online.
If you can turn your camera on and raise your right hand, we can swear you in and you can proceed. Mr. Conley, if you can raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. You may proceed.
You're welcome. I'm testifying in opposition to Board Bill 140. I think it's deficient in terms of the information presented, the bill that's posted online, the fiscal note references Exhibit A for an SLDC analysis. That analysis is not included. Although we've heard a presentation on 139, I really feel we deserve a detailed presentation on 140. It's still very unclear to me exactly what this TIF is going towards. Is it just going to the old structure, the former Goodwill building, or is it also going toward the adjacent building that's shown in the renderings? If you take a trip out to 4140 Washington, they constructed piers, foundations, they poured a slab on the second floor, they've got columns going up to the third floor, and this idea that there's just like minor work going on is completely false, in my opinion. Also, the notification for the TIF Commission meeting, and I've got screenshots that document this. It was required to have 20 days notice and a posting on physically or on the website. There were documents posted on the website, but they were buried away on a section which is documents associated with a certain meeting. But given that 25 consecutive TIF Commission meetings that were posted on the calendar were canceled, usually within like 2 to 5 days in advance, the idea that anyone would be checking this is just absurd. And the actual calendar notice for the November 13th TIF Commission meeting did not have an agenda posted until 4 or 5 days prior to the meeting. And the idea that proper public engagement notice was given, again, I think is ridiculous. And again, in terms of clarity, having listened to that TIF Commission and listened today, all kinds of different terms are used. It's like, we need $4 million to attract a tenant. Then it's, we need $4 million towards the capital stack for this building. When the Comptroller's Office disperse these funds for reimbursement of eligible expenses, who do those funds go to? Is it to St. Louis Innovation District, i.e. Cortex, or is it going to Washington University's for-profit entity, 4140ML LLC, who is actually going to be receiving this funds. And I also believe that SLDC providing a report 13 minutes before the meeting, and I believe that report definitely refers to 139. I don't know if there's information for 140, but I don't think any of these bills should be voted upon until all of them have been properly heard. You've already gone ahead and voted on 139. Documents that were posted by PJAV that are part of that TIF commission material, it had the date for ENA. It has next week's date for ENA. If there was any doubt at all that the Board of Aldermen and ENA wouldn't approve this, why would WashU have started? Someone needs to produce documentation on how much work's been done on the Goodwill building and what that has cost. Would they really have started that if there was any doubt they were going to get the money? I think I feel insulted, and I think a lot of people in the public feel insulted in terms of, there was procedure set in place a couple of years ago, and very much as a result of, the corruption indictments for members of the board. And I just think,
Mr. Conley, that's your time.
Okay.
Mr. Conley, please go ahead and finish your.
Yeah, well, I feel the public hasn't been well served. I don't think SLDC is complying with, sometimes not with the spirit, not with the letter, but definitely not with the spirit of that legislation. And I would urge you to hold Board Bill 140 until your next meeting, until there's proper due diligence and proper opportunity for the public to review the materials from SLDC. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conley. Okay.
That's all the speakers.
All right. Do any colleagues have any follow-up questions? Okay. Alderman Browning, I'm sorry. Alderman Cone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that this isn't necessarily directly related to the TIF note, but related to the project. Sam, is he still in the room?
Yes, I am, Alderman.
Hey there. I also bring this up pretty regularly with the folks at WashU and other institutions doing work in the Central Corridor. I just hope that, as you undertake these types of projects, whether it's this one or others, that you're mindful that the city does have an ordinance that you're not supposed to be blocking the sidewalks as you're undertaking these types of projects as well.
Thank you for that. We've been working with Alderman Browning on a fix for right now. There's some work being done in the front of the building, some water stub out. We worked with Tarleton, the contractors, and WashU, the owners, and I think we've come with a plan that we've articulated to Alderman Browning to mitigate that pain and to make sure that we have proper signage and proper safety measures in place. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, Alderman Browning.
Thank you, and thank you, Alderman Cone, for that concern. I spotted it as well, and I definitely strive to keep pedestrian access as a priority in the ward. I think it's worth revisiting pedestrian standards too, and that's something that the Public Infrastructure Committee is going to be looking at in the future, and something I've heard through the wayside that maybe the TMP is looking at as well. So definitely agree that we can improve on that, and hope that we can have better standards in the future, because even the city doesn't follow our standards sometimes. So on that note, back to this project, I just want to say that I really appreciate, again, know that the timeline here is not ideal. And as you all know me, I don't prefer to bring stuff forward like this, but the idea that this project would proceed without this is not true. And I think there's been plenty of discussion that today. The benefit to the city is, well measured and really quite substantial. I love the idea of having jobs locally for people to fill. And what I love about lab space, and from my previous work experience, I know what goes into lab space. It's jobs at every level, not just the scientists, but also you need someone to wash the glasses and do the lab management. So there's a lot of levels of jobs and a lot of opportunities for people. And not only bringing this tenant here, but also bringing additional people and giving them room to grow is so, so crucial. So I appreciate the committee's consideration today and would ask for a due pass recommendation.
Thank you. With that, I'll accept a motion for Board Bill 140.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 140 with the due pass recommendation.
Second. It was, all right. The motion was made by Vice Chair Sanye, seconded by myself with a call for previous roll with no objections. Congratulations, Alderman Browning.
Thank you.
Right, with that, I'll hand it over to Vice Chair Sanye.
Well, one sec. Well, we're doing your board bill and then the resolution.
He has a resolution.
Right. I would like to go ahead and do that part of the agenda in order.
Okay.
Okay.
For Mr. Pfeffer. Thank you.
All right, Chairwoman Clark Hubbard, you were recognized to open for Board Bill 141.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you please read the summary for Board Bill 141?
Board Bill 141, introduced by Alderwoman Shamima Clark Hubbard. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller of the City of St. Louis on behalf of the city to enter into and execute an agreement or agreements with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control being offered pursuant to a federal fiscal year 2024 notice of funding availability for the lead hazard reduction demonstration grant program and directing the comptroller to issue warrants thereupon the city treasury and containing an emergency clause.
Thank you so much. With me today, I have Director Pfeffer to give a brief presentation as well, and then we'll go through questions.
Thank you very much. And I will be quick and toss it to our Director of Housing, Bill Rata, to go deep on this program, but just a quick overview. Board Bill 141 appropriates $3.6 million for our lead hazard reduction grant program. This is actually our 14th time receiving this grant from HUD. It's a competitive grant which we first received in 1998. And since then, we have, with our partners, the Building Division and the Department of Health, improved over 5,000 units across the city. It's a key prong of our environmental justice work, and it is really defined by those partnerships with other city departments, as well as with contractors and homeowners. Bill Rata, our Director of Housing, has managed this program since day one over the course of his 29 years with the City of St. Louis. He's an extraordinary civil servant who has built these partnerships and this ecosystem that has kept this program rolling, moving, and delivering results for residents. And so I'll toss it over to him now to provide a detailed overview of the program's processes and the budget, which is included in Exhibit C. Bill can also answer any questions that you may have, as I unfortunately need to run to another event. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Noel, and thank you, members. So, as Noel was saying, the grant is a competitive grant.
Excuse me, could you say your name?
I'm sorry, Bill Rata, the Director of Housing at CDA.
Does he need to get sworn in? Yes. Can you place your hand up? Do you promise that you're about to say the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was a competitive grant that we competed with a number of cities and states across the country, and we were awarded it. It's for a little over $3.6 million. It'll result in the remediation of 240 housing units of lead-safe, of lead-based paint hazards. So let me just mention that the grant only allows for lead-based paint hazard remediation. It does not allow for lead service line replacements. Of the 240 units, we anticipate 140 of those will be rental, and another 100 will be owner-occupied units. There was a threshold of a certain number of pre-1940 units that we had to have in order to be eligible for the grant, which we did. So the grant will target those units mainly. So CDA will serve as the monitor of the grant, will oversee the performance of all the subgrantees and the subcontractors, provide grant management, and do the reporting that HUD requires. And we are also working with the building division, as Noel mentioned. They will conduct all the lead inspections and risk assessments to determine where the lead-based paint hazards are. They will write up a scope of work. They assign that to a contractor. They monitor the jobs while they're going on, and they clear the job at the end of the project. The health department is also a partner of ours. They will provide education and outreach. They do free testing of children to determine if they have elevated blood lead levels. They also will help us enroll clients into the program, and not just those who are lead poisoned, but the goal of this grant is also to target children and remediate the units they live in before they become lead poisoned. And then we are also working with Wireless Blue Yonder, who provides our lead-based paint database portal, and they will continue that work, serving it, hosting it, providing additional upgrades that make the lives of the folks in the building division, CD department, easier while working this portal. We also entered a new partnership this year with Affinia Healthcare, formerly known as Grace Hill. And they do a lot of lead screening for children for lead poisoning already. So they are going to directly refer folks into our program, and they will help them actually complete applications. So we're excited about that. They see a large number of households with children under the age of 6 and pregnant women, and that's kind of the focus of the grant. So if we, like I said, if we can get to these units or remediate them before the child's even born, that's the best case scenario. We're also funding Emphasis Computer Solutions. They are going to help us with a HUD requirement that we have to maintain a lead-safe housing registry. So as these rental units go online after they've been remediated, they'll put that in the registry, and then folks can search for lead-safe housing that way. And then we're partnering with the Housing Authority. They are required to have anybody who has a housing choice voucher and has a child under the age of 6 or a pregnant woman, that unit has to be lead safe. So they will automatically be qualified for our program, so they won't even have to apply if they meet that process. So those are the main partners. Noel wanted me to talk about just kind of the process for the program and how it will flow. So first of all, there's no waiting list for the program. So if somebody calls today, the way they get in is you would call the Citizen Service Bureau and you request a lead inspection. And then once that lead inspection is done by the building division, if they find lead hazards, then I have staff to actually mail the applications to the homeowner. Or we could work directly with the tenant, whatever the case may be. And then if they have trouble completing an application, we have a citizen advocate on staff who actually will go out and help gather documents, assist the client with obtaining those application documents that HUD requires, for them to participate in the program. And then we write the scope of work up. It has to have a historic review and an environmental review. Once that's done, then we can sign the contracts with the owner and the contractor. We do provide a temporary relocation stipend. So for the homeowners, they cannot be in, or the tenants cannot be in the unit while the work is being performed. So, during the day, so we give them a stipend to kind of like maybe go stay with grandma or, go out for the day. And when then the contract starts, we do require that the contractors have to obtain a payment and performance bond. And they also have to notify the state that the work is going to start and what day it is, because the state sometimes sends monitors out to review the work to make sure the contractors are adhering to lead safe work practices, as does the building division as well. They monitor the work. They're on the job site every day. At the end of the job, they do clearance testing, and once the clearance testing is done, the contractor can get paid. I will also mention that we do a lot of 2 and 4 family buildings, and we only need 1 unit in the building to have a HUD eligible client, but we could still do the other units with matching funds. And the idea there is, since the landlord is already renting to a family that has a child, if those other units become vacant or there's turnover there, let's make those lead safe too, because they may rent to another family with children. And then the clients also have to meet the HUD income guidelines, which are the 80% of the area median income, and have to be current on their mortgage and their real estate taxes, and the property has to be insured. So that's kind of the summary, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rata, for your decades of service and for that outline. That was a good point to make in the outline, because there may be somebody watching that would absolutely need to access this program. I know we talk about it, well, I talk about it all the time. We down here legislating off of our lived experiences. And my mother, when she was deputy director of public health for the city of St. Louis, I remember this lead being an issue, and in the housing, and most especially with our children. And I have someone very close to me that is thriving now from programming after the fact. We found out that as a child, she had been eating off the paint in her grandmother's home. And that family was able to benefit from programming from the health department and from HUD then. And I'm glad to be able to be in position to continue that, because again, I know firsthand the impact that this kind of programming can have. So with that, we'll be able to answer any questions for Board Bill 141.
Thank you. We'll go through the committee in seniority order. Alderman Cone, are you still on the line? Do you have any questions?
I am. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge. Oh, yeah. Alderman Browning.
No questions. Thank you for bringing this forward. This sounds good.
Alderman Aldridge.
No questions. Please add me as a.
So noted.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to embank this.
Second.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And with that, Alderwoman, you're recognized to close.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Sanye. I would like to note I was prepared for if my colleague Alderman Aldridge asked to note that it will be on this month's ENA agenda. And with that, I'll renew my ask that we favorably pass Board Bill 141.
I will take a motion.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, may you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Saunier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 5 aye votes.
Thank you. And with that, Alderwoman, your Board Bill 141 has successfully passed with the pass recommendation.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Now we'll go forth with resolutions for review. Resolution number 203. Alderman Browning, you're recognized.
Thank you. We are almost done. This is, I think, the last item. So this is a resolution that is a little bit atypical in that typically we just have board bills for these things, but when the TIF was activated in 2023, part of that condition was that they come back with a detailed project report. And that is what this resolution is it is a detailed project report. So trying to provide as much information about the project as possible. So this resolution simply acknowledges receipt of and approval of this detailed project plan. I should hope that to have all of your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. So we'll move forward in questions. Alderman Cone.
Alderman, thank you. That was a very brief summary. Can you just illuminate for the general public, is this within the Cortex area, and what project is this a report on?
Yes, apologies. I mentioned I'm feeling a little under the weather and I can be a little bit forgetful. So this is for the same project we just discussed. This is the 4140 Forest Park Avenue project. The detailed project proposal just simply shows everything that's going into the project, the plans for it, and what we'll be doing now that the if the TIF note and the tax incentive does pass out of the full board.
Okay. Thank you. I just, I know that sometimes we get lost in the conversations that we're having down here, and the general public might get lost. So thank you for the clarification. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Alderman Brown. I'm sorry, Alderman Aldridge. Vice Chair Sanye.
No questions?
Okay. Did we have any speakers signed up, or did you have any speakers in the room that you wanted to have Alderman Browning speak before we?
We have no speakers.
Okay. Any additional speakers, Mr. Alderman Browning?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. Okay, well, with that, you're welcome to close.
Thank you. I do see does our clerk have our hand up? Okay. Thank you. So I would just ask that the committee give their favorable approval of this with a do pass recommendation. Thank you.
All right. That I'll accept the motion for resolution 203.
I make a motion that we pass resolution 203 with the do pass recommend. Oh, I guess I just make a motion that we pass resolution 203.
Second. Motion was made by Vice Chair Sanye, seconded by myself. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Yep.
Vice Chair Saunier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
No.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
No.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 3 aye votes, 2 no votes.
All right, with that, you successfully passed resolution 203. Alderman Browning, I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any written testimony? I know we did announce the written comments we received from the mayor's appointments, but did we have any additional written comment?
We had 6 in opposition of Board Bills 139 and 140.
All right, and they're in the drive?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right, any announcements? We need to excuse Alderwoman from the 1st Ward for necessary absence. And we'll circle back to announcements for Vice Chair Sanye.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was the motion was moved by Vice Chair Sanye and seconded by Alderman Aldridge for the necessary absence excuse. And we're going to go back to announcements for Vice Chair Sanye.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that we are having a special HUD's meeting. Thank you to my colleagues on December 16th at 11:30 a.m., where we will be discussing a bill for a proposal for the spending of RAM settlement fund.
All right, and with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Aldridge, second by Vice Chair Sanye. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all, everyone. Have a blessed day.